Mike Tobin has the latest for us. He's in Tel Aviv. Good morning, Mike.
And Dana, we're getting the details now from this latest missile attack that came in from Iran. It was a couple of dozen missiles that flew at Israel from Iran and really covered the whole of the country from the north to the south. Now, here in Tel Aviv, a lot of the missile interceptions took place right over our head. It's kind of rare to see the missile interceptions operating in the daytime, and quite remarkable to watch the interceptors change path as they chase down those incoming missiles in the sky. The details that we're getting right now is that some 3 missiles got through the air defenses. One of them hit here in the Tel Aviv area, resulting in no reported injuries to this point. Another one hit in Beersheba. That is a town that's now been hit 3 times in the past 2 days. This latest missile resulting in no injuries. A different case in Haifa to the north. One of the missiles got through, and we've now got reports of 5 injuries. That, according to Rambam Hospital. 2 of those injuries are serious. Meantime, we had an exclusive interview with the Director General of the IAEA, Rafael Grossi. He says that Iran did indeed have enough nuclear material for several bombs, but they had not yet enriched to weapons grade. They were just a short step away from doing that, but he did not see Iran on the path to a bomb. Despite all of the warfare, there is a potential for dialogue and diplomacy to keep Iran from attaining a bomb.
I think internationally there is a consensus that Iran should not be nuclearly armed. We are the international corps of inspectors, and we know what you would need to check in order to prevent this from happening. So let's see what's happening, and we believe that the opportunity should be seized, as President Trump said, but of course the space for that is narrowing.
In response to the missile attacks for the past couple of days, Israel's defense minister has promised to intensify the attacks in Iran. And indeed, we saw the Israeli jets were over western and central Iran today. And we heard from the Israelis that overnight they hit some 35 targets in Iran, most of those missile and missile infrastructure targets. Dana and Bill?
Mike, I'm just curious from
Mike
a
Tobin,
personal...
Thank you.
Mike, I'm just curious from like a personal perspective, how do you and Israelis as a whole get any sleep out there? I mean, it seems like you have this constant threat of a ballistic missile possibly coming down on your head at any point in time, and the Iranians have been targeting civilian areas.
The sleep is interrupted just about every night, and usually a couple times at night. You keep your phone pretty close to your bed, and the warnings start coming in over the phone, and then the air raid sirens will start blaring in the air, and that's your cue to get to a shelter. If you're not working at that point, you head for the shelter. So we're up a couple of times every night, Bill.
All right, Mike Tobin, thank you so much, and stay safe.
Yeah.
For more on this, Dan Hoffman is a Fox News contributor. We got a little bit of your thoughts before, and I was like, how can we get through all of this as quickly as possible? Because there's so much good information here. Let's start with this. President Trump saying that he's going to look at 2 weeks. What happens then in terms of the intelligence community? What are they looking for? How are they trying to answer questions that he might have? And what might the Iranians be trying to do in the meantime?
So I think for the U.S. intelligence community, the key thing are reflections from Iranian military intelligence and the supreme leader and the clerics to determine whether Iran really believes that President Trump would indeed launch one of those bunker-busting bombs or a succession of them at the Fordo site. If Iran really believes that, and they believe that the United States would support Israel militarily in action in Iran, that might induce Iran to come to the negotiating table. It's worth remembering that while we were holding negotiations over a 60-day period with Iran, they were defiantly stalling and refusing really to engage in any sort of diplomatic negotiations. And so I think that's what the intelligence community can do to support the president as he considers his policy options.
So yesterday on The Five, there was a spirited discussion and a little bit of a frustrating one in this question about regime change and boots on the ground when nobody's talking about boots on the ground. And I'm wondering if you think, would that even be necessary? I know why people are making the comparison. Like, I get it about Iraq, but I feel like this situation is very different. And plus, the Israelis have changed situation on the ground in Iran so much and in the air that kind of conversation feels unproductive in the moment.
Yeah, I think it's important to remember what our strategic goals are, what are our objectives. And remember that President Trump withdrew from the JCPOA because of those the sunset clauses on Iran's nuclear program, and because the JCPOA addressed neither Iran's ballistic missile capability nor its support for proxy terrorists in the region and beyond. Israel has decimated Iran's terrorist network, and they're also decimating Iran's ballistic missiles. If we can get to those three elements of what concerns us about Iran's projection of power, including the nuclear program, then no one is talking about regime change necessarily. And imposing regime change from the outside in a bombing campaign, I just don't think that has a whole lot of potential for good. It's possible that we might see something organic develop inside Iran. But we've got to consider the fact that if indeed there were regime change, what would follow might be even worse. What we saw when the Soviet Union collapsed was that the KGB operative in the Kremlin, Vladimir Putin, eventually took charge, and that wasn't necessarily a good thing for us. In Iran, the military, intelligence, the IRGC, they're the strong, and they're most likely to survive in the event of a regime change.
Dan, the Wall Street Journal says that Israel tests theory that war can't be won with air power alone, and that they're apparently counting on the air power to win the day without ground operations. But you also said, and I'd love to talk about this, that perhaps Israel would decide to attack Fordo on its own, and that we should be on the lookout for that.
Right. I think we can consider this war won if Iran's ballistic missile capability is destroyed and we enter into some sort of a settlement whereby Iran can no longer be a nuclear threshold state and they no longer enrich uranium. That, I think, would be considered a victory. Israel may decide on their own. I'm sure they've got plans on the shelf to covertly infiltrate Fordo and perhaps seek to destroy the Fordo nuclear facility. It's very difficult because it's buried deep underground. And if you're wondering whether Iran is a real threat to the world with a nuclear program, well, that's evidence right there. This is not Iraq. This is absolutely clear where Iran has a nuclear program that is a threat and needs to be dealt with now one way or another.
All right. Dan, can I just ask you one very quick question? I saw this morning in Jewish Insider that CIA Director Ratcliffe is saying that he has strong feelings about Iran's attempts to get a nuclear weapon. Is that at odds with the rest of the intelligence community, or are they getting to a consensus?
Well, I think the intelligence community needs to rely on facts and not ideology, so whatever they believe should be backed up by human intelligence and signals intelligence. It's not anybody's opinion that matters. It's just based on the facts. The president will make policy. The CIA recruits spies and steals secrets. NSA steals signals intelligence and collects what foreign military and leaders are saying. And all of that informs the president. And frankly, what matters for Director Ratcliffe is to get his analysts, his smart Middle East analysts, out front to the White House, briefing the president, answering the president's questions so that the president can be able to make the most informed decisions possible.
Hear, hear. All right. Dan Hoffman, thank you so much.